Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matala, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
And welcome to episode number 083 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes on this week's episode as we take a look at both Mid-South Wrestling and World Class Championship Wrestling from March 5th, 1983. My name is Arya, and welcome to the show. Now, you might be sitting here wondering, wait, what, when, why, where, what the fuck are you talking about world class for? And well, it's really quite simple. This week's episode of Mid South, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Now, of course, I'm going to say that and then talk about it for like 40 minutes. However, the show is kind of meh. And when I was looking at this week's episode and watching this week's episode, I'm like, I'm going to be lucky to get 20 minutes out of this. How do I sit here and try to extend it out a little bit here and try to make more out of it than it is? And I'm like, you know what? Let's watch something else that happened that weekend, the same weekend, same day. And I go on there and look, and, they don't have the Georgia Championship Wrestling stuff up from that time period. They don't have any WWF stuff. There's no Mid-Atlantic stuff. There's no Florida stuff. I checked a few other things. There's AWA stuff, nothing. And then I'm like, you know what? There's some fucking world class from not just the same weekend, the same day. So I watched World Class. We're gonna talk about it at the end of this week's show. And basically I'm gonna leave it up to people here. I'm going to see if you enjoyed the world class segment. If so, we'll try to continue that here and go from there. But before we dive into old wrestling, let's talk about current wrestling. Sting retired this past week. I'm not sure if you heard that or not, but yeah, the Stinger hung up his boots after wrestling almost as long as I've been living. Literally, he began wrestling when I was 1 year old, which makes me feel old. But it's like with The Undertaker, Sting was just one of those constants in my life, pretty much my entire life. My earliest memories of watching wrestling, my earliest toys, were Sting toys. We didn't get TBS because we had a weird cable system. But we got TNT. So before Nitro started, the only show we watched, the only WCW show we had access to was fucking Worldwide, of all things. And this is before Worldwide got turned into the D-level show that we all know and remember. They had semi-regular, big name people in matches, including Sting. We had one of those old WCW released VHS tapes, Deadly Venom, The Best of Sting. It's like a 30-minute VHS tape. It's nothing, terribly remarkable, but my brother and I probably watched that goddamn tape so many times that I could probably sit here right now and recite it for you word for word from the opening to the end. And I guarantee there's probably people just as nutty about it as I am. So last Sunday, the AEW Revolution pay-per-view, him and Darby Allin defeated the Young Bucks in a match that I've kind of, I don't want to say I've given up social media, especially when it comes to wrestling, but I tune so much of it out these days. So I'm assuming that it is a very polarizing match for a number of reasons, not the least of which was the Young Bucks are in it. Another would be that, both Sting and Darby took bumps through glass, and Darby's back got, sliced up all the hell. If you've never seen it, or if you haven't seen, the GIF of it or a picture of it online, fuck, dude. Like, the guy's basically wearing a red cape. That's how, messed up his back was. But it was, in my opinion, it was a very memorable match to go out on. I think it was a great match to go out on, to be perfectly honest. And this is on a show that had Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita, which is just an absolute marvel of a match. I can't say enough great things about Ospreay and Takeshita from last Sunday. It had a show at FTR versus Moxley and Claudio, which was great. It had another match that was great that I'm now currently blanking on for some strange, weird, unknown reason. The Bryan Danielson Eddie Kingston match. That was a fantastic actual wrestling match. And so, AEW, they haven't been hitting a lot of home runs lately, but that pay-per-view on Sunday was a home run. And I think, with in front of probably the second biggest crowd they're going to have this year, it was the right show to have on that day in front of that crowd. And I'll be honest, there's part of me that thought that the main event, was going to end in 90 seconds when Sting's kids were giving the Bucks stinger splashes, and Sting and Darby were giving to them, and then Sting put them both in a scorpion at the same time. I'm like, the crowd is losing their mind. If they tap right now, I don't think a single person would be disappointed. And of course they didn't, and the match continued, and yada, yada, yada. But I tip my hat because that was a great match. When you think about Sting has managed to have 4 last matches. And he had the last match with Ric Flair on Nitro. Then he had the last, which, by the way, since everyone was kind of assuming he was ever going to go to WWE, we just kind of assumed that could have been his last match. Then he had the last match in TNA versus Magnus. Honestly, less said about that, the better. But again, he's probably never going to WWE, so last match. Then he goes to WWE, and well, this really wasn't meant to be this way, but he has that match with Seth Rollins where he gets injured in the match, and that was going to be his last match. And now he had this one. And so without really even trying, he had 4 last matches, which is 3 more than a lot of people get. And it's amazing because all 4 matches, and we could sit here and maybe this would be a future episode to watch all 4 of Sting's last matches, and review them here. But they're all different, even though they're all the same. It's all Sting. His spots. He does remarkably similar spots in every match he has, but they're all different matches. They're all, in their own way, they're all fitting to end that particular era, so to speak. Okay, so now that and by the way, and I mentioned this on YouTube, by the way, tinyurl.com/something else YouTube, in case you're not already there. I mentioned this on YouTube that, that I've seen Sting wrestle. I believe I've only seen him wrestle twice live. And it could be more. There could have been an AEW show I was at that he was wrestling, but I'm blanking on it if I did. But anyway, so the 2 times I remember him wrestling live are TNA Lockdown 2009 against Mick Foley and WrestleMania 31 against Triple H. And neither are the all-time match of the year candidates, but they were both really fun, really good matches, and really fun to be at live, especially the Triple H match when they had DX come out and the NWO come out. And it helped that I didn't have to listen to commentary with Cole and JBL talking about this is the end of the Monday Night War, a decade plus past the point anybody gave a fuck. So just being there live, it was an incredible experience, we'll go with. And yeah, so goodbye, Sting. Thank you for the memories. And I'll see you down the road, especially if we keep doing Mid-South Wrestling, because you're going to be here in about 2.5, 3 years. So speaking of Mid-South Wrestling, let's dive into it. That is Mid-South Wrestling from March 5th, 1983, from the Irish McNeil Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana. We got a bit of a long intro here. We're going to probably cut it into parts here, but it's going to start with Boyd Pierce and this week's guest host, Cowboy Bill Watts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television Network. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, and we have a lot of excitement coming up. The Black Ninja is here on this week's card. Also, Ted DiBiase will be wrestling. A formidable tag team duo that I know you're going to like, one of the greatest ever to come to the Mid-South area, Mr. Wrestling 2, joining forces with Tiger Conway Jr. Also, Mr. Olympia returns, and he'll take on the rugged Matt Bourne. A lot of excitement, a lot of things to tell you about it, and the man to explain it, no one better than our guest commentator, Cowboy Bill Watts.
Well, thank you, Boyd. It's great to be here tonight, and I think the big news is welcome back Mr. Olympia. The guy was a top star of Mid-South Wrestling, a great star. He sacrificed himself, so to speak, when Mr. Wrestling 2 was injured and took his place in a match with Stagger Lee and was a victim of the Rat Pack. But he's back, and he may give the Rat Pack their own pack attack. The big news again is March 21st, downtown New Orleans, will be a one-night tournament for the North American title. Stagger Lee's mysterious disappearance has caused the North American title for the first time in its history to be in limbo. And they're going to have a one-night tournament. A lot of big names already signing up for that. Tito Santana, that people watch out of Atlanta. Super Destroyer. Of course, Mr. Olympia's put his name in the hat. Many others. As it gets closer, we'll certainly have more top stars filling in.
Okay, so not a whole lot of, name action. I mean, we're going to have Ted DiBiase, we're going to have the Black Ninja, Mr. Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway are forming a formidable team this week. And also, Mr. Olympia finally returns and is going to take on Matt Bourne. So we'll see how that goes. Watts puts over the March 21st North American title tournament and saying that among other people, Tito Santana and the Super Destroyer will be here. And yeah, so you can see listening to the intro why this week's show does not, not sound like one that's going to light the world on fire. So we fill up some time with some extra audio. Let's go back to Bill Watts, who's going to tell us about Junkyard Dog and a recent news clip that he was on.
A great star, probably the greatest star ever in Mid-South. A man that's a lot of people get to see in the ring, don't often get to visit with it, but a very personable young man. I'm proud to call him a friend. The Junkyard Dog. You know, these guys have a tremendously busy schedule. We get a lot of letters at Mid-South asking that the dog and the different stars can drop by and visit them. I know we got a nice letter from a kindergarten teacher in LeCompte and different places. These guys' schedules are so busy, they'd like to have the time to do it. Well, the Junkyard Dog found time on February 10th to go to DeRidder and visit a school there. And when word got out in that town, they had Junkyard Dog Day, and I'll tell you, it was great. The mayor, Creighton Pugh, gave the dog the key to the city. Representative Eldridge Morris gave him the pelican, the state bird, on a lapel clip. The dog really enjoyed it, and the people enjoyed it, and thanks to Channel 7, that's KPLC at Channel 7 in Lake Charles, Louisiana, we have some of their file footage from their news. Let's watch that now.
The Junkyard Dog, one of the most popular wrestling figures in southwest Louisiana. The dog made a special appearance at Eastside Upper Elementary in DeRidder. Vicki Dixon, coordinator of the event, says the visit stressed to students the importance of education.
And let them know that even someone they admire, like a wrestler, has an education.
After walking through classrooms and signing autographs, he spoke to a group of special education students. The dog had a wrestling match in Mississippi Wednesday evening, and after the school visit, proceeds to Lake Charles, where another match is scheduled. Despite his busy agenda, he still tries to fit in school visits whenever possible.
And it's just more or less an everyday thing. A lot of times I get out and do this thing, you know. A lot of people don't never take the opportunity to go out and, get fame and stuff, get very well known, and they forget about the way that they grew up. And a lot of times I like to go back in schools and visit.
Between matches, the Junkyard Dog says he will continue to spread the word that school and education are the most important things a child can experience. Robert White, 7 News, DeRidder.
Well, I'm sure everybody in DeRidder enjoyed the dog's visit. I know he enjoyed it. He was beaming when he came back. This is the kind of guy he is. He loves to help others. He loves children. And his schedule permitting, he makes these surprise visits. He and Jack Curtis, who you saw there with him. We'll be back with more action after these words from Mid-South.
So, nothing really to write home about with all that. It was, Junkyard Dog doing something nice. He visited a school. He visited children and signed autographs, met with them, told them how important it is to, stay in school and all that fun, happy shit. And honestly, if this was a show where I was going to be playing, 30 minutes of audio like I do on some of these Smoky Mountain shows, that would not have been played. I can promise you that. But, hey, it was a nice charitable thing that Dog did, and we'll tip our caps to the Junkyard Dog here for doing something nice for the community. So back to actually talking about, pro wrestling. We've been having a ongoing story with Mr. Wrestling 2. Mr. Wrestling 2 is being stalked by somebody. Who is it? We don't know. Whomever this is, keeps sending him clues. And Bill Watts, and he's going to segue from this and also talk about Mr. Olympia. Bill Watts is going to recap what's going on and tell us about something new that has now happened to Mr. Wrestling 2.
Mr. Wrestling 2 has been a top superstar for many years in professional wrestling. A man of pride, a man of mystery, a man that protects his identity, is proud of his spirit, his heart, his courage. But, I guess, Boyd, even little things that could seemingly in another setting be rather comical can be oftentimes very disconcerting, or very sinister. Like, I guess, the Chinese water torture or the Russian water torture. You think just about a faucet dripping, that shouldn't drive anybody crazy. But if you're isolated and that dripping's in the middle of your forehead, they've driven people completely crazy. Well, somebody has been putting this kind of pressure on Wrestling 2. And when we got here today, Oral Link had said when he arrived and was setting up the television cameras, there was another symbolical hanging of Mr. Wrestling 2. We'll look at that right now as Director Oral Link pre-taped some of it before all the fans got in. And this is a type of sinister situation that we're viewing right now that has been going on. And last December the 8th, it kind of came to a head. I think most people had thought that Kamala and Akbar were taking off masks for one reason and one reason only, to unmask Stagger Lee. But then it seemed that his exuberance for collecting those coups and putting on his spear overflowed, and he was going to get Mr. Wrestling 2's mask. And I think with the pressure, Wrestling 2 immediately thought that Skandar Akbar was the guy that was doing the different symbolical deformations of his wrestling gear. And it all boiled over and exploded on that December the 8th with a long-lasting effect, in that Wrestling 2 and Stagger Lee were scheduled to wrestle Matt Bourne and Ted DiBiase for the Mid-South Tag titles, loser of the fall to leave town. Wrestling 2 was injured in the melee with Kamala, and Mr. Olympia had to take his place. Let's relive that moment because it's very important today.
Okay, so before we relive that moment that's very important to today, let's talk about what we've just listened to them talk about. So Mr. Wrestling 2, like we said, there's somebody that's after it. And Watts compares it to Chinese water torture, which I am not going to even try to say one has anything to do with the other, but he tries to make that comparison. And he shows from earlier today, before the show began, there was a, miniature Mr. Wrestling 2 doll that was left hanging on the ropes. And they showed, still frame of it. So whomever this is, and I know we've, talked about how they've kind of been going, they've been teasing it and then dropping it for a little bit, and it's almost as if there's something behind that. But it's back. It's in full force here. And he brings up Kamala. He brings up how, in one of those long forgotten storylines that who knows if it had a reason or purpose to it at the time, but Kamala was collecting masks. Skandor Akbar was paying jobbers to wear masks so that Kamala could beat them, take that mask and put it on his spear, and to put 2 and 2 together, got 5, and assumed that Kamala was coming after him and that Akbar was behind what's going on here. And he ended up getting himself injured before the tag team title match, back in December. And so Mr. Olympia replaced him. Mr. Olympia got pinned, and Mr. Olympia had to leave Mid-South for 90 days. He had to go without money, go without pay for 3 months due to just trying to be a nice guy. And he got screwed in the end. Now, up next, they say that, we're going to go to the clip from, Mr. Olympia losing. It's not even so much that we go to the clip of Mr. Olympia losing that tag match. We go to a clip. Bill Watts pitches it to a clip of Bill Watts pitching it to a video of Mr. Wrestling 2 reading General Skandor Akbar the Riot Act, which led to the injury. So basically, they aired the best of 1982 clips instead of just airing the actual clips. So yeah, Bill Watts from March of 1983 pitched it to a video of Bill Watts from 1982 pitching it to a match from 2 or 3 weeks before that where that happened. Don't know why. And at the end, 1982 Bill Watts sends it back to 1983 Bill Watts, who recaps everything again. And no, I'm not going to play the audio of 1983 Bill Watts recapping what 1982 Bill Watts just showed us. Before we finally go to the ring, because believe it or not, there is wrestling here on this wrestling show, they actually re-air the entire video of Kendo Nagasaki that we played last week, where he waves his kendo stick with J.J. Dillon in a bubble on the screen cutting a promo. At this point, a full 1/3 of this show is now over. 14 minutes of it is over. And we go to the ring for Kendo Nagasaki, the Black Ninja, versus Jerry Caldwell. Sadly, because nothing on this show can go right for us this week, Reeser Bowden is on vacation, so Jack Curtis is doing the ring announcing, and he is just bad. Not even bad in a funny, quirky way like Reeser is. Just bad. Nagasaki has his shaven, religious-style haircut from the Orient, aka a giant bald spot, and he wins with a super kick. The less said about this, the better. I was begging for more videos where Bill Watts pitches it to himself. Ted DiBiase versus Ron Ellis. This is where I note that Jack Curtis is so bad at this, and not even in a fun Reeser Bowden. Like, he cannot be the best option they had as a number 2 ring announcer. Like, legitimately, was there nobody else in the building who could speak into a microphone? Like, there's an old lady. What happened to our cowboy friend, from that Cajun I used to talk about in the front row? I bet he could have announced the match better. And speaking of things that are even sadder, DiBiase has shaved his heel beard. So he's clean-shaven Ted DiBiase, but he's still a heel. Watts, by the way, announced that April 16th is the next Superdome show. DiBiase hit a power slam and won with a figure 4. Mr. Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway Jr. versus Kelly Kiniski and Ron Kessler. Bill Watts excitedly announces that in 3 weeks we'll have midgets. Okay. Next week, Mr. Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway Jr. will wrestle Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. And in 2 weeks, Super Destroyer and King Kong Bundy will be here. Now, I don't believe either of them last, very long here. I think they're just kind of an in and out kind of thing. But I'm going to play a little bit of audio here where Bill Watts is going to talk about somebody new that's on his way, and this is somebody that is a big to do here in Mid-South for the next few years. Let's go to that now.
Another superstar is on its way to Mid-South Wrestling, Hacksaw Bruce Reed. And we had an explosion when we were talking about that, Grizzly Smith and I, when one Hacksaw Dugan said there is only one Hacksaw in Mid-South Wrestling, and there will be only one Hacksaw in Mid-South Wrestling, and you're looking at him. And so I just don't know. That could be an explosion the minute it happens. Front face line.
So they call him Bruce Reed, but, mostly everybody knows him as Butch Reed. So, yes, Hacksaw Butch Reed is on his way into Mid-South. Like I said, he's going to be here for a while. I think he's here for a good 2 years. So if you're a Butch Reed fan, take a deep seat and get ready for it. If you're not, I'm sorry. But his Mid-South run is a lot better than his WWF run, if that makes you feel any better. And, we'll see how that plays out here over the next little bit. And by the way, he will be Butch Reed. I think they call him Bruce Reed like the first couple weeks he's here. But he does go to Butch, in case you're curious. Now back to the match. Ron Kessler is really bad. Like, remember how bad Hacksaw Higgins was last year in that match with Paul Orndorff? This may have been worse. Conway gives Kessler 2 of the worst body slams we've ever seen because Kessler couldn't even get up for the move, and Conway eventually wins with a backdrop. Mr. Olympia versus Matt Bourne. The first thing to note, Mr. Olympia has been taking his Hulk Hogan vitamins while he was gone. That boy is jacked. And I mean, he was pretty filled out beforehand, but man, oh man, this was the reverse Chris Masters. He left and, blew up a little bit. Now, the match gets going, and we were allegedly going to have a clean break until Bourne used a cheap shot, but got backdropped when he ran after Olympia. By the way, they announced here that next week was also Tony Atlas versus Hacksaw Duggan. At this point, DiBiase comes out for immoral support as Bourne dropped a knee to the back of Olympia, but DiBiase's appearance just inspired Olympia to fire up until Bourne injured his back further. Bourne goes up top, so he got yelled at by the referee because coming off the top rope is illegal in Mid-South. He moves to the middle rope for the bombs away, but Olympia gets his knees up. Olympia makes his comeback, and Bourne needed to regroup with DiBiase outside the ring. Back in the ring, Olympia made his comeback, and Bourne, I already said that, back in the ring, Olympia was still running wild. This is what happens when I look away for a second to make sure I unmuted myself. Unlike a few weeks ago when I was muted for like 5 minutes and didn't even realize it. The joys of post-show editing. Anyway, back in the ring, Olympia was still running wild, but DiBiase tripped him for the disqualification. Bourne rolled up Olympia, but Olympia kicked him off into DiBiase, who was now on the apron, and then pinned him with an elbow. Don't ask. Yes, Olympia had won the match by disqualification, but then I'm assuming it was never actually the planned finish, and, instead of covering it up and editing, they just let it out there. Anyway, Olympia cleared the ring after and stood tall, stood victorious, and is here and he's back. We'll see how that goes. Now, it's already time for our expiration of time matches. In some cases, it could not have come quick enough. In many ways, this is the worst Mid-South that we've ever reviewed. Matchmaker Grizzly Smith should be ashamed of himself, for reasons more than just the usual ones that he should be ashamed of himself for. And the match this week is Tim Horner versus Marty Lundy. Easily the second best match on the show. Although, let's be honest, that really wasn't saying much this week. Honestly, I'd say it's better than the last match just due to it not having a screwy finish. Instead, we just get the usual expiration of time limit draw. So that was Mid-South, a very meh show. I think I literally did review it in 20 minutes. And this would normally be where, if I was just trying to do this show and this show only, I would find ways to speak slower and more deliberate and maybe talk about some random modern day wrestling thing, or I talk about how I'm probably going to go to WrestleMania this year. But, you know, instead, like I said, I took a trip to Dallas to go to World Class. And so let's go to World Class Championship Wrestling. This is March 5th, 1983, from the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas. It opens with Bill Mercer, who says that today's main event is Texas heavyweight champion David Von Erich versus Buddy Roberts. They've mentioned that David joined with the Freebirds when they won the six-man tag team titles the night that Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy turned on Kerry. And, you know, the feud is raging. The feud's been going on now for 3 months, and it's just continuing on here. And after that, how else do we open the show? But motherfucking General Skandor Akbar is here. And by the way, it was the comparisons to this show in Mid-South are, astronomical in some ways here. But motherfucking General Skandor Akbar cuts a promo with Bill Mercer. And by the way, I'm not going to play the audio of this one. If we continue doing the world class reviews, we'll get the audio in the future. But for now, it's just me yapping away about it here. Anyway, Akbar talks about how the great Kabuki was injured, but he's now on his way back. From here, we go to a serene countryside where Kabuki was training. Akbar tells Mercer that Kabuki will be back shortly. Very, very shortly. Akbar said that he doesn't like to repeat himself before repeating himself. We showed Kabuki meditating at the end. And then Bill Mercer asks Akbar about Kamala. Because, again. But Akbar says Kamala is 6'7", so he's now 2 inches shorter than he was in Mid-South. Still closer to his actual height than, than reality here. But Akbar was hesitant to bring Kamala into World Class at first, but with the problems he is having, he felt that he had to. At this point, I know some of y'all thought I was joking when I talked about the video shot in Jerry Jarrett's backyard that they aired in Mid-South. From here, we play the video of Kamala in Jerry Jarrett's backyard. And it's the exact same video. The exact fucking video with the same exact voiceover with the guy going, Kamala, 6'9" tall. Kamala, 385 pounds. Kamala, the Ugandan giant. That video. From here, we go back to Akbar, who says that no one has the guts to wrestle Kamala. And that was the end of that. So we go to the ring for our first match. It is the Magic Dragon with Armand Hussein versus King Parsons. Parsons obliterated Hussein last week, according to Bill Mercer. So now Armand has brought... okay, fuck that one up. But Armand has brought the Magic Dragon to the ring instead. Mercer said that last week Armand was doing his camel walk and got beaten. Explains that Parsons got the nickname Iceman due to working with ice. Okay, then. We got to test the strength, and Dragon used, and I quote, the discipline of the kick to get the advantage briefly. Parsons no-sold the turnbuckle smash and teased the fiery comeback, but Dragon chopped him. The picture quality of this show wasn't great, so WWE put on the bottom of the screen throughout the show that the picture quality would improve soon. And I guess technically it would improve for a few seconds at a time. At one point, and this is really different between World Class and pretty much any wrestling, you'll see pretty much anywhere else ever. On the bottom of the screen, I thought somebody was putting a large black club into the ring. I thought Armand Hussein was putting a foreign object or something into the ring. Suddenly, there's just a long black object in the ring. But it turned out it was a sound guy with a boom mic to pick up on the audio of the ring, which, gotta say, that was different. And it definitely, it definitely made the sound, it definitely picked up the sound better, I'd say. Anyway, Parsons went out of nowhere with she calls that the rear view, and then gave one to Armand Hussein when he tried to attack after the match. So yes, Naomi learned that move from Iceman King Parsons. From here, General Skandor Akbar was in the ring with King Kong Bundy. Yes, the same Bundy who's going to be in World Class in Mid-South in 2 weeks. Akbar said that there are two problems with World Class: Armand Hussein and Tola Yatsu. Akbar challenged Hussein and said he'll get it out of him somehow. Now, in case you're confused about a few things, first of all, Tola Yatsu is Yoshi Yatsu. And yes, both Armand Hussein and Skandor Akbar are heels. So, there's no honor among thieves here, but we'll see how that plays out if we continue watching the show. And from here, Tola Yatsu's in action, as it's Tola Yatsu with Armand Hussein versus Al Madril. Armand did hold Yatsu back from going after Bundy. Finally, the ring was cleared, the bell rang, and Hussein screamed that Yatsu should be given time to do his ceremony. However, the referee basically told him to fuck off and that the bell already rang. But I guess Al Madril is just a really nice guy because he just let Yatsu do his pre-match ceremony, after the match had already begun. Madril stiffed Yatsu with a few punches and appeared to give him a goose egg. Yatsu was so mad that he gave Madril an inverted atomic drop. Madril claims that he is a disciple of Elvis Presley. I gotta say, if you'd given me 1,000 guesses to say who Madril idolizes, I would not have said Elvis. Anyway, Madril slips coming off the ropes, and Yatsu locks on the stomach claw for the submission. After the match, Yatsu kept trying to give the claw to Madril some more. And from here, because Armand Hussein hasn't been on the show enough, Armand Hussein got a promo. Armand Hussein talks to Bill Mercer, and he thanks his attorney, the great Tim Banner, for bringing Tola Yatsu into the United States. He said that Devastation Incorporated will go down since they took Kabuki from him. So there's a reason why. Hussein said that only 2 men in the world have mastered the stomach claw, and Tola Yatsu is one of them. Honestly, I want to know who the other person who's mastered the stomach claw is. I think that could be an interesting thing to find out. So, up next, we have Jimmy Garvin, and I'm assuming that Jimmy Garvin's just debuted in World Class, and last week he refused to wrestle on TV. So we go to a jacuzzi where he is sitting in a pool of cloudy water while Sunshine, not Precious is not here yet, while Sunshine plays with his hair. Garvin said that he refuses to let people film him wrestle. He said he doesn't want to be filmed so no one can see any potential flaws of his. And of course, he says he doesn't have any flaws, being a great heel and everything. But he doesn't want, anyone to see any flaws to take advantage of. Mercer asks about Sunshine taping other wrestlers and fans being disappointed about not seeing him wrestle. And Garvin said he doesn't care what the fans or other wrestlers think. His future plans here in World Class are to take out the Von Erichs, who he calls young punks, and then he pulls out a stack of 8x10s, and he rips up one of Kevin, he rips up one of David, he rips up one of Kerry. He says he can't wait to teach Kevin some manners, then take the Texas title from David, and he says that Kerry doesn't even deserve to be mentioned on national television. He then said, to make things weirder and more confusing, he then said the Freebirds belong in a garbage can because they have no class. And he is bringing class here to World Class. Sunshine is bringing beauty, and together they're going to bring class to wrestling. So, an interesting promo, and I gotta say, I don't really know, what to think, because you tend to think of wrestling from the early '80s being very cut and dry, very black and white, baby faces and heels, and then you got a show like this where two heel managers are feuding, and you have Jimmy Garvin, who's clearly a heel, talking shit about the Freebirds, who are also clearly heels. So that should be interesting. And the filming thing was weird, but we get more into that here in a few minutes here. Main event up next, Texas champion David Von Erich versus Buddy Roberts with Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy. I know that I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know, but the fucking fans loved David Von Erich. They were mobbing him while he was trying to get to the ring, and they were surrounding the ring to try to get his autograph. They're jumping up on the apron, and Kerry and Kevin are having to almost fight them to get to the rings to help out. And somehow Jimmy Garvin also came out with Sunshine, but they watched from the aisle. Announcer Mark Lawrence announces that referee Bronco Lubick said that everyone other than David and Buddy Roberts must leave the ringside area, and the match will not begin until then. And apparently when he says that everybody must leave the ringside area, they weren't including Jimmy Garvin and Sunshine because for some reason they were allowed to stay at ringside. So the match begins, and David was distracted by Garvin, which let Buddy attack him from behind. Sunshine videotaped the match. Now, I gotta tell you, they had Sunshine out there with a 1983 8mm video camera, taping it. You'd think it would be smarter for Garvin to invest in a VCR and just record the TV show, since I don't think 8mm video camera footage is coming out that great. Could be wrong, but I sincerely doubt it. David reverses an Irish whip, sending Buddy sprawled across the top turnbuckle, and David punted Buddy off and onto the floor, which just makes my back hurt thinking about it. David slaps on a headlock, and Garvin was adamant about Sunshine getting footage of that headlock. I mean, it was a nice headlock. Don't get me wrong here. Anyway, next week is Kerry Von Erich versus Michael Hayes, so we're splitting up the Freebirds Von Erich's feud into a bunch of singles matches here. Buddy sold an atomic drop. I would say he sold an atomic drop better than I've ever seen anybody sell that move. And I'll tell you what, David really worked that side headlock, so maybe it made total sense for Jimmy Garvin to have Sunshine recording it. David gets on the claw, but Buddy was in the ropes. And at that point, Hayes and Gordy run in for the disqualification. They both give David a spinning neck breaker, so outrun Kerry and Kevin to clear the ring. And the show ends with a Bill Mercer interview after the fact with David. They talk about the last 2 weeks. They said last week, David said they beat the Freebirds in the middle of the ring. And, he was doing a great job of selling the neck after that pair of neck breakers that he got. He said that he should now get a world title shot after winning the 6-man match last week. David guaranteed the Von Erichs would win this war, and then previews next week's Kerry Michael Hayes match as the show ends. So all I'm going to say is that show was a lot better than this week's Mid-South. And, I'm going to ask on, the YouTube page what everyone thought about it, and if you'd like to see me continue. And we'll go from there, I guess. So that's going to do it for something else this week. I don't have any weird news to play this week. It's just, 2 shows and the Sting stuff. That's enough to talk about for this week. So we're going to finish things up here. And I want to thank everybody for listening. And, my outro theme is slowly pulling up. There we go. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television Network. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, and we have a lot of excitement coming up. The Black Ninja is here on this week's card. Also, Ted DiBiase will be wrestling. A formidable tag team duo that I know you're going to like, one of the greatest ever to come to the Mid-South area, Mr. Wrestling 2, joining forces with Tiger Conway Jr. Also, Mr. Olympia returns, and he'll take on the rugged Matt Bourne. A lot of excitement, a lot of things to tell you about it, and the man to explain it, no one better than our guest commentator, Cowboy Bill Watts.
Well, thank you, Boyd. It's great to be here tonight, and I think the big news is welcome back, Mr. Olympia. The guy was a top star of Mid-South Wrestling, a great star. He sacrificed himself, so to speak, when Mr. Wrestling 2 was injured and took his place in a match with Stagger Lee and was a victim of the Rat Pack. But he's back, and he may give the Rat Pack their own pack attack. The big news, again, is March 21st, downtown New Orleans, will be a one-night tournament for the North American title. Stagger Lee's mysterious disappearance has caused the North American title for the first time in its history to be in limbo. And they're going to have a one-night tournament. A lot of big names already signing up for that. Tito Santana, that people watch out of Atlanta. Super Destroyer. Of course, Mr. Olympia's put his name in the hat. Many others. As it gets closer, we'll certainly have more top stars filling in. A great star, probably the greatest star ever in Mid-South. A man that's a lot of people get to see in the ring, don't often get to visit with, but a very personable young man. I'm proud to call him a friend. The Junkyard Dog. You know, these guys have a tremendously busy schedule. We get a lot of letters at Mid-South asking that the dog and the different stars can drop by and visit them. I know we got a nice letter from a kindergarten teacher in LeCompte and different places. These guys' schedules are so busy, they'd like to have the time to do it. Well, the Junkyard Dog found time on February 10th to go to DeRidder and visit a school there. And when word got out in that town, they had Junkyard Dog Day, and I'll tell you, it was great. The mayor, Creighton Pugh, gave the dog the key to the city. Representative Eldridge Morris gave him the pelican, the state bird, on a lapel clip. The dog really enjoyed it, and the people enjoyed it, and thanks to Channel 7, that's KPLC at Channel 7 in Lake Charles, Louisiana. We have some of their file footage from their news. Let's watch that now.
The Junkyard Dog, one of the most popular wrestling figures in southwest Louisiana. The dog made a special appearance at Eastside Upper Elementary in DeRidder. Vicki Dixon, coordinator of the event, says the visit stressed to students the importance of education.
And let them know that even someone they admire, like a wrestler, has an education.
After walking through classrooms and signing autographs, he spoke to a group of special education students. The dog had a wrestling match in Mississippi Wednesday evening, and after the school visit, proceeds to Lake Charles, where another match is scheduled. Despite his busy agenda, he still tries to fit in school visits whenever possible.
And it's just more or less an everyday thing. A lot of times I get out and do this thing, you know. A lot of people don't never take the opportunity to go out and, you know, get fame and stuff, get very well known, and they forget about the way that they grew up. And a lot of times I like to go back in schools and visit.
Between matches, the Junkyard Dog says he will continue to spread the word that school and education are the most important things a child can experience. Robert White, 7 News, DeRidder.
Well, I'm sure everybody in DeRidder enjoyed the dog's visit. I know he enjoyed it. He was beaming when he came back. This is the kind of guy he is. He loves to help others. He loves children. And his schedule permitting, he makes these surprise visits. He and Jack Curtis, who you saw there with him. We'll be back with more action after these words from Mid-South. Mr. Wrestling 2 has been a top superstar for many years in professional wrestling. A man of pride, a man of mystery, a man that protects his identity, is proud of his spirit, his heart, his courage. But, you know, I guess, Boyd, even little things that could seemingly in another setting be rather comical can be oftentimes very disconcerting, or very sinister. Like, I guess, the Chinese water torture or the Russian water torture. You know, you think just about a faucet dripping, that shouldn't drive anybody crazy. But if you're isolated and that dripping's in the middle of your forehead, they've driven people completely crazy. Well, somebody has been putting this kind of pressure on wrestling too. And when we got here today, Oral Link had said when he arrived and was setting up the television cameras, there was another symbolical hanging of Mr. Wrestling 2. We'll look at that right now as Director Oral Link pre-taped some of it before all the fans got in. And this is a type of sinister situation that we're viewing right now that has been going on. And last December the 8th, it kind of came to a head. I think most people had thought that Kamala and Akbar were taking off masks for one reason and one reason only, to unmask Stagger Lee. But then it seemed that his exuberance for collecting those coups and putting on his spear overflowed, and he was going to get Mr. Wrestling 2's mask. And I think with the pressure, Wrestling 2 immediately thought that Skandar Akbar was the guy that was doing the different symbolical deformations of his wrestling gear. And it all boiled over and exploded on that December the 8th with a long-lasting effect in that Wrestling 2 and Stagger Lee were scheduled to wrestle Matt Bourne and Ted DiBiase for the Mid-South Tag titles. Loser of the fall to leave town. Wrestling 2 was injured in the melee with Kamala, and Mr. Olympia had to take his place. Let's relive that moment because it's very important today.
Another respected, well-established wrestling star exploded on the scene in 1982 here on Mid-South. Mr. Wrestling 2, the masked man that knows no peer. But he's been on a slow boil because somebody has been symbolically defacing replica equipment, like a Wrestling 2 mask, making threats through the mail and things like that to Wrestling 2. It all came to a head when Wrestling 2 thought it was Skandar Akbar and his savage Kamala, who's been trained to unmask people. Let's watch that incident on December the 18th.
Stagger Lee, I would be... Wrestling 2, Wrestling 2! I had to think that there's something. I know how upset Wrestling 2. Look at him. Wrestling 2 is really reading Akbar the Riot Act about that mask. I know how upset he's been. All right, Wrestling 2 starts on Akbar. Mr. Wrestling 2, you better watch it. Here comes Kamala. Here comes Kamala. Wrestling 2 fires away on Kamala. He pops Kamala a knee. He pops him another knee. Wrestling 2, Wrestling 2. Knock Kamala clear out of the ring. Wrestling 2 has just slammed whoever he is off the top rope. And Wrestling 2 is going to do some unmasking. He's going to do some unmasking of his own. Akbar trying to pull the man out of the ring. It looks like Wrestling 2 is struggling for that. Kamala's going off the top rope. Wrestling 2 doesn't see him. 385 pounds drops on Wrestling 2. Now Kamala is going for Wrestling 2's mask. Wrestling 2 is helpless. He's inert. He's laying there. And Kamala is about to unmask Wrestling 2. What nobody in the history of wrestling's done. Here comes Olympia and Stagger Lee, two more masked men. And they're in there to help Wrestling 2. And they're after Akbar and everybody. One thing about it, nobody likes Akbar. Kamala goes to pick up his manager, his man Friday, and help him off. But Wrestling 2 is laying there and looks like he could be badly injured.
Mr. Wrestling 2, a man who goes into a rage when somebody touches his mask or his personal belongings, proved right there that left alone, he could possibly be the man who would stop the onslaught of the giant Kamala. However, he had more to deal with than that, and he was hurt. And that injury stopped him from a meeting of destiny. He and Stagger Lee were to wrestle DiBiase and Bourne for the Mid-South Tag Team title. One fall, no disqualification, with the loser of the fall having to leave Mid-South, just as the Junkyard Dog and Mr. Olympia had to do that on October 27th. Stagger Lee got Mr. Olympia to fill in on December the 18th as Wrestling 2's partner. Let's join the final moments when once again the last laugh was had by the Rat Pack.
Tag, Stagger Lee. I can't tell if he tagged or not. I don't know who's the legal man. I can't tell who the legal man in the ring is. I guess it's still Mr. Olympia. Ralph Neely never did call a tag. Mr. Olympia's got the sleeper. Tony Bourne, Matt Bourne going up to come off the top rope. Stagger Lee slams him off the top rope. He's tags him off the top rope. He's going out after him. Hacksaw Dugan comes. Hacksaw Dugan came with that hat on. Ted DiBiase fired him back. Stagger Lee went to try to save him. Matt Bourne stopped him. Mr. Olympia gets defeated. Mr. Olympia will have to leave Mid-South for 90 days. He will have to leave Mid-South for 90 days. The Mid-South champions are still Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. A very dejected Stagger Lee and a badly stunned Mr. Olympia.
And we'll be back.
No disqualification is a license for getting away with just about whatever you want to. Mr. Olympia will have to leave Mid-South for 90 days.
Well, Mr. Olympia's time is up, and he's back. He comes back today. He's a former Mississippi heavyweight champion, former one-half of the Mid-South Tag Team Championships. As a matter of fact, when Mike George was injured, it seemed like being the partner of the Junkyard Dog, you had a short history. It seemed like you became a marked man. Dick Murdoch had just been injured and sent to Japan, and he'd been the Dog's partner. And Mr. Olympia came, put out his hand, and said, I'll be your partner to the bitter end. And he was. And even when the Dog was gone and Stagger Lee was here, when Mr. Wrestling 2 got hurt, he showed the kind of heart he had. He went out and took Mr. Wrestling's 2 place. It cost him a vacation, a hard, unearning vacation. But he's back. We'll see him later after these words from Mid-South Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kendo Nagasaki, the Black Ninja. There, Barbara, is the mysterious face of Kendo Nagasaki in the specialized uniform that those who have ever traveled to the Far East, to the Orient, would recognize as the uniform of the Kendo warrior. You see the war plates about his chest. You see the specialized plate across his face. You see the Kendo stick. But don't for 1 second doubt that Kendo Nagasaki is specialized only in the art of Kendo. He is proficient in Jiu-Jitsu. He is proficient in Judo. He is proficient in Karate. He is proficient in Taekwondo. Every type of martial arts known to man, this man has at one point in his life specialized. Now, you mentioned that Kendo, all of the Oriental arts, Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Karate, are all primarily defensive, and that is what makes the Black Ninja unique, because Kendo Nagasaki, so proficient in each and every form of these arts, is the first man, to my knowledge, anywhere in the world whose mental attitude was shaped that it was no longer a defensive procedure, but became an offensive procedure. And as a result, this man had stripped from him his high degree of black belt in karate. He had stripped from him his high degree in judo. He was thrown from the sumo stables and not allowed to come back and perform because of the people that he hurt. He entered the world of professional wrestling. He has been to Europe. He is barred from Europe. He is barred from England. He is barred from many places in the world. He's the most devastating thing that I have ever seen.
This event, a 10-minute time limit. Introducing from the Far East, Kendo Nagasaki, the Black Ninja. His opponent, Jerry Caldwell.
Ring announcer Jack Curtis Jr. substituting for Reeser Bowden, who's on a well-earned vacation, with the introduction of the match, Kendo Nagasaki, the Black Ninja, versus the man who now taking off his silver jacket, Jerry Caldwell. Bill?
Well, we see the ceremonial pre-match activity of the Black Ninja, a man who came in here to Mid-South a couple of weeks ago with an advance warning to the Junkyard Dog. Somebody sent it. We don't know who controls him. We don't know the whole basis of it. But he's come in. He came out of the cloud of smoke riding a motorcycle. A martial arts man. He devastated the following week an opponent. This is his third week here, but he issued a martial arts type warning to the Junkyard Dog. And his name is one of the names that has already been entered in the big tournament, March the 21st, for the North American title, the one-night tournament. So it could very well be that he's biding his time until that date, and everything will be revealed. That, by the way, he is not a bald-headed man as that looks. That hair is shaven. That is a ceremonial, religious type situation in the Orient. And everything is symbolic. He is extremely quick on his feet. There you see he takes Jerry Caldwell. He catches him with that kick. Backhand chop. Snap there. His face is painted a garish, symbolic paint situation. These arts and rituals and traditions are so old in the Orient. They are very serious. Kendo Nagasaki into the nerve claw. Ted DiBiase coming up next in a new tag team combination, Mr. Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway Jr. And then Mr. Olympia will meet one of his must-be nemesis, Matt Bourne, a member of the Rat Pack, in his first match back here on television, Mr. Olympia versus Matt Bourne. Man made short work of him.
The Black Ninja, the winner over Jerry Caldwell. More action coming up after this message from Mid-South Wrestling Television Network.
This event, a 10-minute time limit. From Omaha, Ted DiBiase. His opponent, Ron Ellis.
One fall or 10-minute time limit. Newcomer Ron Ellis taking on Ted DiBiase. As Rick Ferreira clears the ring with the instructions, calls for the bell. Here's Bill Watts.
Well, I don't know where matchmaker Grizzly Smith finds some of these guys, but you've got to give them a chance. You know, there's been some occasions here, Boyd Pierce, when you and I have been watching, that there's been a relative newcomer that's come over seemingly to be fed to the lions, so to speak, that has exploded and caught everybody's attention. And it often seems like these men are outgunned and outmanned, and on appearances, I don't think this guy can hold up to DiBiase, as could Caldwell not hold up to the Black Ninja. But you never know when you're going to find that diamond in the rough. And speaking of diamond in the rough, Don Diamond was one of those situations that we had here a couple of years ago that really exploded on TV. Of course, Tiger Conway Jr. came over, and he'd kind of been out of the mainstream of wrestling, and he said that he's really been excited about what's been happening in wrestling all over the Mid-South area and Houston, now that Mid-South is in Houston, and he decided that if you're going to be in it, you got to go full gear, and you better be ready, or else, he said, it's so tough now, the competition, that was snuffing out in the preliminaries, and he's gotten geared out, and he came over here and made some big-time challenges. First match was against Hacksaw Dugan. The next one against Kamala, and then Hacksaw went in and got into that, so Tiger's right into the middle of the boiling pot. Ron Ellis against Ted DiBiase. And DiBiase, a very controversial man, whatever you think of him, he is right up on top as one of the big stars in Mid-South Wrestling. Ted DiBiase, a man that was one time a Rookie of the Year himself here in the Mid-South area. The Superdome, April 16th, is the next Saturday night Superdome. The 3 big Superdomes a year. Make plans. That's an extravaganza no one wants to miss. Ted DiBiase measuring Ron Ellis. Very confidently stalking his man. Power slam. DiBiase does that so well. Man's a great athlete. Football star at West Texas State University. His father was a great wrestler before him. Figure 4 leg lock.
He locked it in on him, Bill, and gains a victory over Ron Ellis. That's Ted DiBiase. We'll be back. Tag team action, Mr. Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway Jr. after this message from Mid-South.
This event, a 4-man tag team bout, a 10-minute time limit. Introducing Ron Kessler and Kelly Kaninsky. Their opponents, Tiger Conway Jr. and Mr. Wrestling number 2.
Tag team action now as Ron Kessler in the black and red and his partner from Vancouver, British Columbia, Kelly Kaninsky, take on the popular duo of Mr. Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway Jr. Alfred Neely, the referee, saying, let me have one man from each team to get the match underway. Calls for the bell.
And as ring announcer Jack Curtis just got out, Jack's very proud. His mother and father just had their 50th wedding anniversary. Of course, his father was a great wrestler in his day with Jack's uncle, George Curtis. A lot of these guys come from wrestling families. As you're looking out there, there's 2 of them. Tiger Conway Jr., his father was a great in the South Texas area, and Kelly Kaninsky, whose father was the world's champion, Big Thunder from Canada, one of Canada's greatest all-time athletes. And Kelly starting out the hard way, just like they all do. Just because your dad's got a big name, it doesn't do anything for you in the ring. And you can see he's in a lot of trouble right now, facing 2 rugged customers as his partner looks on. In 3 weeks, boys, we're going to have midgets. Crowd favorite. The kids will be looking forward to that. 3 weeks from today here on Mid-South Wrestling. Next week, this team right here, Tiger Conway and Mr. Wrestling 2, will face Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne in the non-title match. In 2 weeks, the Masked Super Destroyer from Atlanta will be here live. Also, King Kong Bundy from Dallas and Killer Brooks. Lots of big names heading this way. A lot of things getting ready to happen. Anytime it gets close to Superdome time, Boyd, it seems like things get to happen. It's just been kind of traditional. A lot of things come out of the woodwork. Mr. Wrestling 2 stalks his man in that inimitable style of his. The crowd starts going 2, 2, 2. He's getting a slow boil, I'll tell you. It's really starting to stick in his craw, these things, these challenges. He considers them so cowardly. This man who's never dodged any issue. He's never been one that lets you worry about what he felt. He'd tell you right up front, I want you to know. He'd tell you whether he liked you or didn't like you. And he'd tell you if he's going to battle you. There was never anything deceptive or sneaky about him. And I think this guerrilla-type warfare, this subversive, terrorist-type activity against Wrestling 2, it is the most despicable kind of thing. It's the unknown, or the fear imposed by what kind of nut it is that's doing it. And 2 has offered rewards. He's done many things to try to smoke him out, but so far it's still quite a mystery. He thought he had found the answer when he attacked Skandar Akbar. It almost cost him some severe pain and agony when Kamala got geared back in on him. And Wrestling 2 is not through with the Kamala situation, but apparently as devious in this flat ornery and involved in everything as Skandar Akbar was. It's not Skandar Akbar that's doing this to Wrestling 2. Akbar kind of, even with his rottenness and everything, he more or less buys people to do his bidding. But you pretty well know pretty quick and out front whether he's after on your trail or not. Tiger Conway showing those high-flying moves. Great ability, this young man. Another superstar is on its way to Mid-South Wrestling. Hacksaw Bruce Reed. And we had an explosion when we were talking about that, Grizzly Smith and I, when one Hacksaw Dugan said there is only one Hacksaw in Mid-South Wrestling, and there will be only one Hacksaw in Mid-South Wrestling, and you're looking at him. And so I just don't know. That could be a explosion the minute it happens. Front face lock by Wrestling 2, a man who's known for his tenaciousness when he gets a hold of a guy. First we've seen in here Ron Kessler, and he met Wrestling 2 up close and in person the hard way. And Ron Kessler wisely tried to hold on those ropes because he saw 2 was just laying in wait for him. But Wrestling 2 just adjusts as he's so apt to do, and he tagged in his partner. And Ron Kessler just gets an introduction to Mid-South Wrestling from Tiger Conway Jr. as Kelly Kiniski looks on. Oh, they're putting the forearms to him. Oh, look at the power of Tiger Conway Jr. These men have so much power today. It's just awesome to see. Kelly Kiniski coming in. Tiger Conway caught him with a drop kick, shows that mobility. And Wrestling 2, his team partner, the man that'll always back you up, comes right in. Now Kelly is out on the floor. Tiger Conway picks up Ron Kessler. Short body slam. Another short body slam. Set through move, landing on his head. And there you have the fall.
I told you that you'd like Mr. Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway Jr. proving their formidable tag team. We'll be back. Mr. Olympia versus Matt Bourne after this message from Mid-South Wrestling.
This event carries a 10-minute time limit. Introducing Matt Bourne. And ladies and gentlemen, returning to Mid-South, one of Mid-South's most popular stars, Mr. Olympia.
The introduction, there's the man with a hat in the ring, gray trunks, gray hat, the rugged Matt Bourne against the popular Mr. Olympia, making his return. Rick Pereira calls for the bell. Bill Watts with the commentary.
Sparks are flying right there. You can be sure of that. Let me tell you, nobody likes those unpaid vacations. Well, Mr. Olympia was sitting on top of the world. He and the Junkyard Dog, an insufferable team, and so quickly his world had kind of gone right into the outhouse, so to speak, and it all seemed to happen with the Rat Pack, as they laughingly call a pack attack. And Mr. Olympia certainly looks like he's maintained his condition and his physique in the gymnasium, Boyd Pierce. While he's gone, what will be the telling story is if he's kept his wind up by a hard running, because when you're straining like these two men are straining out there, every ounce and every fiber of your strength, it really takes that conditioning. Ricky Ferrara trying to maintain order. He's trying to get on top of this match before it all breaks down. I think this is one of those situations that's going to be awful hard to keep in check. These referees have a thankless job. They got both opponents out there always a little bit disgruntled with them. And if they're calling something against the crowd favorite, the crowd is not on their side. Matt Bourne on the break. Left-handed southpaw Matt Bourne fires on Mr. Olympia on the break. As he went for another one, Mr. Olympia elevated him. He really got under him. Drop kick. Arm drag. Mr. Olympia doesn't look like he's lost any of his quickness, does he, Boyd?
Not a bit, Bill, and he's come back. Like you said, he's been on an unpaid vacation, but he's coming back trying to gain more money. Has a victory here. A great showing will propel him on up to the main event that he's used to.
And he's another man that's entered that North American title tournament, the one-night tournament in New Orleans on March 21st. And whoever comes out as the victor of that puts himself right in the limelight of money and prestige, but right in the middle of a hot spot as far as action goes. Tremendous quickness, Mr. Olympia. He's a good athlete. He's in there against a good athlete. Matt Bourne, a very cocky individual, an upbeat, low-key type member of the Rat Pack. Everybody remember that infamous day that Matt Bourne arrived when the Hacksaw Dugan had been detained, and they made fools of everybody, myself included. Even Paul Bosch, that venerable promoter who's seen about everything in wrestling from Houston, was here, and we were all taken in. Tony Atlas was so taken in, he'd gone out in the crowd and accepted a balloon from the gorilla from the Midway. This was during the state fair here in Shreveport, and everybody just thought it was one of the barkers from the Midway inviting the kids to stick around after it, and he got excited and was watching the matches. He was giving away balloons, covered head to toe in a gorilla suit, when it turned out to be Hacksaw Dugan. But Matt Bourne had been flown in by DiBiase, and they won the Mid-South Tag Team titles and caused the Junkyard Dog to get a 90-day vacation. Then they caused Mr. Olympia to get a vacation. So the Rat Pack is certainly a formidable group. I thought I detected a little chink in their armor when Hacksaw Dugan got a little upset with DiBiase on a situation, thinking maybe DiBiase had enlisted the aid of Skandar Akbar. Dugan's got a lot of pride. He doesn't want any truck with Akbar and his Iranian oil interests, or his, especially after Akbar at one time had the Iron Sheik under his contractual employment, a man who was the Khomeini's bodyguard. And speaking of the Iron Sheik, next week, right here on TV, we'll have a match from Houston, Texas, of the Iron Sheik versus one Mr. Wrestling 2. We'll also have Tony Atlas against Hacksaw Dugan next week here on TV. Chavo Guerrero will be here. Mr. Olympia, feeling the pain. You know, people often ask me, boy, if I don't miss it out there. I'll tell you what, I don't miss the pain. And when a man like that gets it and he's hurt like that, people say, well, you body slammed him, but you know how to fall, so it doesn't hurt you. Let me tell you, when you come down from 6 foot in the air, it hurts. Ted DiBiase out there cheering Matt Bourne on. The crowd taking up the chant, Teddy Sue, Teddy Sue. And Matt Bourne seemingly really pouring it on Mr. Olympia. You know, each night, in order to sleep, I have to get my shoulders just a certain way from all the ligament damage in the shoulders, and of course the knees. Anytime there's a change in the weather, and the ankles. You look at Ernie Ladd, 11 knee operations. It's definitely for the youth. Mr. Olympia, fighting to stay in there. He knows the Rat Pack would like to spoil his debut in a big way, but the crowd is calling for him. The crowd is behind him 100%. He and Matt Bourne, he went for the body slam, but his back was still in spasms, and he was unable to lift Matt Bourne. Matt Bourne, knowing it, is attacking it as a smart tactician will do it. He'll certainly always be on the injured point. There, body slam again. Everything is over the injury that he sustained there. Matt Bourne goes up for that illegal, bombs away. Let's see what Ricky Ferrara says. Ricky Ferrara's warning him. So Matt Bourne steps to the second rope, which is illegal, but just as devastating. You cannot come off the top rope. Oh! Oh! Whoa! Matt Bourne won't be feeling too well after that, I don't believe. And Matt Bourne out to check with Ted DiBiase, and DiBiase trying to get him some time. I'll tell you right now, Matt Bourne he is in a lot of pain, and he's trying just to get anything to re-gear himself and re-coordinate. And DiBiase is giving him moral support out there, and they've certainly known, those members of the Rat Pack have been known to give more than moral support. The Junkyard Dog not here today, who is probably the closest friend of Mr. Olympia. So Mr. Olympia is on his own. DiBiase making a trip right there. You just saw Ricky Ferrara. They're still right on going. They're right on going. Oh! The two in the ring just haven't got it settled. Ricky Ferrara's called for the fall. And Ricky Ferrara, since they kept on, he dropped right on down, and he counted it. He said, if you all want to keep on going, keep on going. And DiBiase just got drop kicked right out of the ring, and Mr. Olympia proves he's back in Mid-South. And listen to that crowd.
A tremendous ovation for Mr. Olympia. We still have time. We'll have more action after these words from Mid-South Wrestling Television Network.
This event, one fall, TV time remaining. Introducing from Georgia, Marty Lundy. And from Knoxville, Tennessee, Tim Horner.
Knoxville, Tennessee's Tim Horner in the maroon jacket and tights against Rome, Georgia's Pride and Joy in the black trunks, Marty Lundy. Alfred Neely calls for the bell. A battle between two youngsters who realize the victory here would greatly enhance their chances in arenas all over the Mid-South area.
Well, that's right, Boyd. And, of course, that was a great victory for Mr. Olympia. Ricky Ferrara had caught Ted DiBiase, had rung the bell for the disqualification. But when neither man stopped, I guess Ricky just got gathered up with the emotion of that young man coming back and outdoing the two Rat Pack members, and he went ahead and put the victory down as he counted down the shoulders of Matt Bourne when their plans and their evil intent backfired on him. It was great to see the crowd give him Mr. Olympia a standing ovation and welcoming him back. This is one fall of television time remaining. Here's two youngsters that are both have bright futures. Tim Horner, who's a fine little athlete, and Marty Lundy, who has certainly improved. He's a big, rugged guy, very powerful guy. Does 600-pound squat in the gymnasium. Mid-South Wrestling. Off the top rope that Matt Bourne attempted is illegal. You cannot jump off the top rope onto your man. You can come off the second turnbuckle. You cannot run your man's head into the steel post. These are automatic disqualifications. If you intentionally throw your opponent over the top rope, that is a disqualification. That's a judgment call by the referee. In that if you drop kick him and he goes over or something like that, that's not intentionally throwing him over. So oftentimes you'll have decisions that have to be made at split-second level by the referee in the ring because it has to be intentionally, your intent has to be. You have a 10 count to get back in the ring on the floor. I know in Houston, Texas, for years they had a 20 count. But Mid-South, 10 count on the floor if you're out on the floor to get back in the ring. And that's what is now in force in Houston. You have to break on the count of 4. The referee calls for a break. Smart guys can use that to their advantage. They'll break real quick and re-secure the same hold. On the ropes, you got a 4 count to break. Marty Lundy, Tim Horner, two youngsters that have really started improving. A lot of great action. Midgets in 3 weeks. Next week, Mr. Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway against Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. In 2 weeks, the Super Destroyer from Atlanta, King Kong Bundy, Killer Brooks. 3 minutes of airtime left right now as these two young men try to enhance their reputation in front of you fans at home and the promoters that watch Mid-South Wrestling. Victories on television are very important to these youngsters. I think it's a great tribute to matchmaker Grizzly Smith to give these two men an opportunity to show their skills against each other. This is where they perfected. They've gone up against guys that have outclassed them in skill and strength level and experience. Now we have two that are about at the same experience level with each other, a more evenly matched event. These are the superstars of tomorrow. Like I say, we saw Ted DiBiase be the Rookie of the Year, his first year in professional wrestling, right here in the Mid-South area. We saw the Junkyard Dog come through, and before he had become the Junkyard Dog, and he had a tremendous streak of events in Mid-South, and they were all losers. And look how he has developed by perseverance and staying with it. Less than 2 minutes airtime left. These guys are going to have to hustle, trying to take that victory home, and Marty Lundy's really got Tim Horner in a lot of trouble. There he goes for the fall with a single leg cradle type maneuver. Didn't get it. Whoa, Tim Horner's going too fast. You need air brakes, and he got Marty Lundy, caught him just with sheer speed. But Lundy powered out. He's gotten to be a powerful young man. He's really been in the gymnasium, really working hard on his strength. It's a very important thing. A lot of times you can get out of a lot of trouble when you got that overpowering strength. Still, you can be overconfident, like right there, and think you're going to drop it. That guy's not going to sit there if he can move in less than a minute, Boyd Pierce. These two in a television time limit remaining bout, going right down to the wire. We could have a victory at any second, Boyd. I know as has happened in the past, you'll stay with it as long as you can, trying to give these kids an opportunity for one of them to gain a victory.
Right down to the end we'll stay, Bill, as we saw this week.
Looks like right there. 2 count. No, he's out.
The Junkyard Dog as he visited D. Ritter for the Junkyard Dog Day. The return of Mr. Olympia. Our time is just about gone. Remember, next week, the big tag team match, Wrestling 2 and Tiger Conway Jr. versus Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. For our guest commentator who did another tremendous job, Cowboy Bill Watts, I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, saying goodbye, everybody, as our time is running out here on Mid-South Wrestling Television Network.